Hey everybody, this is Nick. Just going to give everybody a few minutes to join. In the meantime, there is a polls button in the bottom of your screen. If you don't mind just answering a few basic questions, I can tailor my talk a little bit more towards things you're interested in. And if you have any questions right off the bat, go ahead and drop them in, ask a question there. And I will get to those now or at the end of the talk. Also, feel free to say hi in the chat. Okay, well, I'll introduce myself to start. My name's Nick. I've been on Redox team since the very beginning. I'm employee number 2. I work on the development side. Before Redox, I was on the interface team at Epic. And I've been doing medications interfaces for a long time, so it's very exciting for me to announce this product and give everybody a rough overview of what we're doing with medications. Here's the agenda for today. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the bottom there, and I will get to them most likely at the end of the talk. If there's something very urgent, we can stop and address it. So if you've never been introduced to Redox before, we're kind of a new product in the market. We take a sort of interface engine type product. We built it all ourselves to sort of be cloud native and API first. And we add a really awesome managed services team that goes in, helps you build out an integration strategy, does all the dirty work of VPNs and configuration and mapping HL7 fields to the right places. And then a super awesome engineering team that's monitoring all that infrastructure 24/7. So you don't get paid for VPNs. When new fields get added in messages, you don't just notice it 3 months later. We notice it right away and fix it for you. So all those things together make this kind of innovative product that we call Redox. Part of our core API are these different data models that we develop. A lot of it is very workflow driven, and you'll see we're at 19 now. So medications was just released, and that's what we're here to talk about today. But you can see we cover a whole host of other areas of clinical workflows, as well as financial ones and claims. And really, if you're a developer, the beauty of it is you can just code once and sort of not have to worry about what's under the hood. If you look at different EHR vendors, they all support different standards. Even if they both do HL7 version 2 or they both do FHIR, there can be inconsistencies and variations across the two. And really just building this network and getting all the endpoints for all these things is a challenge in and of itself. So everything gets done by Redox, and you just have one API endpoint, one set of credentials to worry about, and everything else is in Redox and sort of supported and monitored by us. Cool. So the first thing I'm going to talk about just broadly is medications. And this acronym CPOE, you might not have heard of, but it's a little bit dated at this point, I think. But it stands for Computerized Physician Order Entry. So that's your EHR usually. Back in the day, CPOE was a term that was used before EHRU, and really when it was just something for people to type orders into. So I wanted to use a classic scene from Curb Your Enthusiasm to highlight what's actually going on here. So redox medications, fundamentally, it lets you join this conversation happening between a physician and a pharmacist. In technology terms, that's the CPOE system and a pharmacy system. A lot of people underestimate the sort of diversity of products in the pharmacy space. A lot of people underestimate pharmacists, as this scene plays out. If you've seen the episode, the pharmacist thinks that a different drug would be better for Larry's dad, and Larry has to kind of go back and forth between the doctor and the pharmacist. And there's obviously a very hilarious conclusion, which I'll let you see on your own. But yeah, at the end of the day, you're sending an order from a doctor to a pharmacy system, and what our new product does is let you sit in the middle of that. Medications is still a very challenging integration point, especially when it comes to patient-facing things. I listed out a few of the really difficult things here. Basically, anything that's over the counter, and you didn't originate in a CPOE system is hard to track. So if you know what the dose of the Benadryl in your bathroom cabinet is right now, good for you. But chances are most people don't know that, or they're not putting it into any kind of electronic format to track. If you've ever been written a prescription and not gotten it filled, that's a whole another kind of problem where a doctor might write you two things and say, hey, like these are what these do. If you want this one or this one, go get it filled. Or they might say, see if it goes away in 3 days and then get this prescription filled. So there's the need to sort of understand if something was dispensed. And then whether or not people actually take it or apply it or whatever is another problem. So that's sort of what we call administration. Maybe you start taking antibiotics and you find out you're allergic to sulfa, so you stop taking it. That would be something that's difficult to track electronically. Sort of the second big umbrella of things to know about medications is the inpatient versus outpatient world. So if you've never heard the term inpatient and outpatient, inpatient, just think hospital. Outpatient, think going to your doctor's office for a regular checkup. Of course, that's very oversimplified, but with outpatient medications is usually someone who is your PCP, or maybe you're getting discharged from the hospital and you're supposed to pick up some medications at a pharmacy. It's not necessarily like a very complex type of medication. It's something that a pharmacy, like a CVS or Walgreens, would stock. And it could just be something over the counter too. In this world of technology for outpatient medications, there are these e-prescribing networks. So if you've ever had a medication e-prescribed and the doctor says, okay, where do you want this sent to? It's utilizing one of those networks. So Redox can help you with the technical component of joining one of those networks, but there's also sort of a business side that you'll need to figure out. So if you're interested in talking about that, again, we have a link at the bottom of the webinar to set up a one-on-one conversation, and that would be something we could talk through. Inpatient, that's right, same basic idea. Medications go from an order entry system to a pharmacy, but it's a completely different set of workflows. So in an inpatient pharmacy, you're going to have a lot more different drugs, a lot more complex drugs, especially sometimes you'll have mixtures of drugs. So basically like the pharmacy just has sort of chemicals in the back and they mix them together. Again, that's very oversimplification, but you can actually order something like that. There's robots in inpatient pharmacies that are very large where they'll get the electronic order and just sort of make that mixture and package whatever needs to be done. There's things called ADS cabinets. I think that just stands for auto dispense. But when you're in a hospital setting, sometimes in outpatient too, you'll see these cabinets, and somebody will go run to it, punch in a code, and pull something out. That actually very commonly gets tracked electronically as well. So if you're giving a patient, something from an ADS cabinet, that would be a use case of the Redox data model we've developed. And then, just there's a whole lot of different tasks that a pharmacist does in an inpatient setting. Again, checking medications, what's called verification. It's usually a lot more involved than, say, picking up one particular drug at your local retail pharmacy. So different workflows, same basic data model. So we're using the same data model for both. And there are flags in there to indicate, sort of what the ordering scenario is. But yeah, again, lots of interesting workflows to learn on that side. Cool. So just to highlight some of the things that we can support with the medications data model, getting new order notifications when medications are ordered either in the inpatient or outpatient setting. We have these 3 events right now: new, update, and cancel, and those are all pushed out in real time. So hypothetical use case for prescription orders notifications would just be sort of adding something to someone's medication tracking. You might do something interesting with machine learning, like looking at patterns of who's prescribing what. It's really just kind of like a log of who's ordering what for who. Another interesting use case you could combine with our clinical summary data model is medication list reconciliation. So the clinical summary data model is sort of a snapshot in time of a patient's, many aspects of a patient's chart. Medications is one component of it. And so you could combine the medications data model with clinical summary to sort of build out an accurate medication list and then push it back into the EHR. So here again are some of the data models and event types that support that clinical summary push and pull. In terms of medication administration, you would use clinical summary right now to sort of document that something was given to a patient, or read what was actually given to a patient, again, either in an inpatient or outpatient setting. But we are going to be adding administration and other event types to the medications data model in the future. There are sort of things under the hood to get that information. And we're sort of waiting for a use case to come along, but we have everything built out already. So it's not live yet, but it's on the roadmap. And again, this is sort of what you can expect to see in the future. There's, again, a lot of complicated workflows I talked about a few slides ago around why it's hard to track this information. So one of the events would be refill. If you've ever gotten a prescription with refills, you'll know that you can just call the pharmacy and say, hey, I need my refill, and they sort of know that you're allowed to have it. The refill event would cover all that kind of workflow. There's even ways for pharmacies to communicate back to the provider and say, hey, do you authorize an additional refill for this patient? We're also going to be tackling administration. So again, this one's important in both inpatient and outpatient. If you're given an injection of something, or if you're just even taking ibuprofen while you're at the doctor's office, that's things we can tap into. You can see coming out in real time. Dispense events kind of go with that refill event. So that's tracking when you actually are given the medication from the pharmacy. In some cases, it might be you're at your local corner store pharmacy and you're sort of saying, okay, they picked this up. Or it could be in a very acute setting where somebody's pulling something from the ADS cabinet and giving it to you. And then again, the sort of medication statement idea is a more patient-reported type of thing. So saying that Benadryl in my closet, I take one every night in the summer because I have allergies. This is the dosage, and this is sort of how many I take a day. Okay, so I breezed through that pretty quickly. We don't have any questions so far, so I'll hang out for a few minutes if people do have questions. Otherwise, thanks for joining. And again, use that schedule one-on-one with Redox button to talk to someone more in depth about medications one-on-one. It looks like no questions, so trust everybody's going to go sign one conversation. And thanks for joining. I'll see everybody later. Bye.